Well, David, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for running for school board in Douglas County. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I've lived in Douglas County since 2007, very early 2007. We put three children through the Douglas County School District. I first got involved in local education. Honestly, it was an argument with my wife. I refused to vote for a tax increase back in 2008. And she came back from a PTO meeting telling me, well, if we don't vote for it, we're going to lose our bus. And I said, tough. And if we lose the bus, I will get it back. And the tax measure failed. We lost our bus, and it took me 3 months, but I got it back. At that time, the reason I got it back is there was no reason to get rid of it. What the school district did was take the bus that used to come through our neighborhood and put the driver with his bus on the other side of the green belt, which has a mud hole. If it was in my backyard, it would have to have a fence by law. Bears, fox, lightning strikes, and a cadre of registered sex offenders on the other side of it. They approved that as the walk path for kindergartners, but the dangerous, sleepy suburban street needed a crossing guard. So instead of picking our children up on the way to be the crossing guard, he went right by our neighborhood and acted as a crossing guard over there. Well, we got this on video and assured the school board the bus would be back or it would be on the front page of the paper. Eventually, both ended up happening. So that started my journey into education activism because it leads to the budget and taxes and what's going on in education. So that was 2009, 2010. And I would go on to be appointed to and then serve 2 terms as the chairman of the DAC, the District Accountability Committee. And I chaired that at a time where what the purpose of the DAC had changed. I cannot remember the Senate bill. It was either like 163 or 198. There were a couple of them. But it essentially made the DAC a tool for the board to hold the district accountable instead of a tool for the people to hold the board accountable. So there was a lot of confusion. There were a lot of upset parents that were used to going and griping to the DAC about the board, and that was no longer the process. It was a very tumultuous time. And it was also during that time that we had some of the worst economic, climate in Colorado had ever seen. Douglas County being a quote, and I use quote, wealthy county. We're not. Wealth is a measure of what's left after you pay bills. A larger gross and larger bills do not equal wealth. But that's what the state feels. So they were continually underfunding us, and we had to do more with less. And I don't mean underfunding us like we needed more. I mean by what the formula says we should have. We worked it out. We did more with less in those days. And this brings me, I'll jump a little bit in the middle there. That's not related, but it brings me to this past January. The voters spoke very loud last November. They said no additional taxes. And I was at a meeting where the school board president was speaking in January, and the school board president let us know they would be putting the tax back up this year. It was completely tone deaf. And we can argue about whether we're in a recession or we're not. But I was just at the grocery store, and prosciutto is $12 for 3 ounces. Things are tough. Things are tight. Things are expensive. I think it was the Moody report in July that said we're spending an average of $700 more per month for the same goods and services as 2 years ago. So here comes the school district using bad math, handpicked, telling us we don't pay enough. And the fact of the matter is we do. They're not telling the whole truth. They're using selective facts, selective numbers to push an agenda. So I decided in February, I'm in. I'm going to tell the truth about math, and I'm going to make them answer for what it is they're doing. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's nice to see, parents, citizens standing up, speaking out, trying to hold some of these elected boards accountable and say, hey, the people are struggling out here in Colorado. It's inflation's through the roof. Taxes
No.
are only going up.
Yep.
So people need advocates. People need somebody to stand up and say, hey, who's looking out for us?
Yep. I agree. And our taxes here, it's an average of a 50% jump. If you're in Highlands Ranch, your homeowner's insurance is going to be ridiculous because we had a tornado. Uh, I got neighbors that went up 60, 70% in their homeowners insurance, 50% in their taxes, $700 a month to their cost of living. And now the school district wants an additional, what amounts to a car payment every year. About $450 is the actual number. They're saying $200 and some change, but there's debt retiring that basically would be rolled up into this. They're not telling the truth. We would be getting a decrease. Further, this is the best part. We're getting 53 million more dollars from the state next year. That's a 10% single year increase. It's enough to give every employee in the district a 10% across the board raise and still have $18 million left over for other things. The board doesn't speak to that. And the other 6 candidates running in this race don't speak to it. I am the only candidate who has been against this tax increase before it was even on the ballot, and I'm the only one that talks about the math now. What they do is they say, well, we need more. We need, our seniors need. They're not getting any sort of increase to their Social Security. The district has kept pace with inflation, double inflation for the last 6 years on average, with 10% in this coming year alone. That is a lot of money. Where is it going? Well, we all know where it's going. It's going to the pension fund, which is another story. But no one I know is getting a 10% year over year raise. It is unconscionable that the district would be that tone deaf. But what they're playing is a numbers game. Fewer people generally vote in off-year elections. So the universe shrinks, the dollar per vote goes further, and they're trying to get 66 million ongoing every year. And what's particularly insidious to me about this is that 66 million and the current math they're using is based off of a all-time high in home values. As the home value drops, the amount you must be taxed to get to the 66 million increases. So your property taxes will increase as your home value goes down in perpetuity. That's wrong. It's wrong. Our seniors don't need this right now. And we have a lot of them in Douglas County, a lot of them.
Well,
It's
I'm really glad you, yeah, go ahead.
no, it's unconscionable to me. It's tone deaf. We elected a board to represent us to the district. They are being led, in my opinion, by the superintendent and leading the district or representing the district to us. That's not the way this is supposed to work. It's just not.
Yes, definitely. The people need a voice. And I'm really glad you brought up people living on a fixed income, people who are facing these record high property tax bills, record high inflation, and just the struggles of average working class people in Douglas County who can't necessarily afford to keep getting taxed every year in perpetuity,
Yeah.
like you said. And it is kind of insidious in so many ways because, when you talk about schools, you talk about children, everybody wants what's best for the kids, right? Everybody wants these kids in your district to have, in your county, to have a good education, to be set up well for the future. So it's very easy for people to want to vote yes, to want to say, hey, yeah, I'll give up a little bit extra. I'll give up some of my discretionary funds to help support the kids. But it doesn't seem like this money is necessarily being used properly. As you brought up, this fiscal irresponsibility that the board or the county really needs to be held account for.
Well, we did a tax increase in 2018, and it was supposed to give teachers a raise. They gave administration a large raise and didn't give teachers a very big raise. So now they're back again this year. Once it's passed, the money's 100% fungible. They can do with it whatever they want. They've got it. It's frustrating because it's tantamount to lying. What they will say is, well, the increase in your property taxes is not bringing the district any additional money. They neglect to explain the buckets. There's a local bucket, there's a state bucket. So next year, our property taxes are going to the state's general fund and coming back 53 million more than the year before. That's our money. It just happens to be coming from the state instead of directly through the county. So when you do a mill levy override, you are overriding your local portion of the tax. Ask any Republican at the Capitol, elected Republican. Actually, let's qualify that better. Any conservative, because there is a difference. What's going to happen when we raise that? Senator Van Winkle will be the first one to tell you they're just going to cut the amount they're sending back because you're taking care of it locally. Further, they use one particular district, Cherry Creek. They love to compare us to Cherry Creek. Now, Cherry Creek isn't DeBruce. This is a term that is very nebulous to people, but what it basically means is they're operating in a funding paradigm pre-Tabor. So their local mill is 0.19. Ours is 0.27, and by law, it cannot go lower than that. The difference between their mill and our mill is filled in by the state of Colorado. We pay more direct taxes than they do, even with their mill levy overrides. But they don't tell you the truth about that because it gets confusing. So it's easier to make an emotional argument. Oh, it's for the kids. It's for safety. It's for security. Well, we raised taxes in 2018, and we had a tragedy the next year in 2019. And we are essentially operating on the exact same system that we were before that. We've changed not one thing to our safety and our security. Oh, there's parchment guarantees. They've passed policies. Great, because as we all know, policy protects children in the classroom. No, it does not. They haven't done anything different. It's unconscionable. Where did that money go? We gave administration a boost. We hired a bunch of counselors. And it's funny, if we're so wealthy, like they tell us, why do they need to provide counseling? We're wealthy. Shouldn't we be providing our own for our children? It's just talking out of both sides of their mouth. So I say all this to get back to the fact they will tell you Douglas County has a conservative school board. Conservatives do not raise taxes in economic hard times. I would say it's a recession, but the government will just change the definition of the word for us. They do not raise taxes when people are already struggling. And that's exactly what they're looking to do. Exactly.
Yeah, very fair point there. I completely agree with you that it is not proper in this time really to be asking for people to give up more of their hard-earned money. Doesn't seem like things are going to get any easier economically. But
No.
David, I did want to ask you, besides the fiscal issues, what are the other big issues in your district?
So, I mean, there's a myriad of them. We do a pretty good job, honestly, with our literacy intervention. We've got some pretty fantastic scores for third grade literacy in comparison to the rest of the state, 87.5% at or above grade level. And that's wonderful, but that's still just a B. And what happens is we do a good job up to that point, and then somewhere afterwards it starts trailing off because our remediation rates, which are a measure of college readiness, children that we send to in-state university or junior colleges, how much remediation do they need? We're creeping back towards 20%. So that means we're sending kids to higher ed that aren't ready, that aren't operating at the level they should be. So we've got some challenges there. We're detecting it early, but we're not sticking with it. That's a problem. Security is absolutely a problem. Safety is a problem. We need to have all options on the table when discussing this. Adding SROs to the buildings that don't have it is great. We need to do more. There was armed security at the STEM school, and it didn't make a difference. The only person that could have saved Kendrick Castillo was that teacher. That's it. We have to do better, and not on paper. It can't be parchment guarantees and promises. We have to roll up our sleeves and actually do better. One of the other challenges that we face, there's rolling outages for transportation right now. They don't have enough bus drivers. And there's classrooms that are have more students than maybe we would like because we're lacking some teachers. This is not because of our pay. This is because there's a nationwide shortage of teachers. With regard to transportation, the same district they love to compare us to for teachers, Cherry Creek, only pays 50 cents more an hour, and they have no shortage. Why? Because we can't get people at the wage we're paying that can pass a drug test. That's the problem. You can't put somebody that fails a drug test behind the wheel of a bus. We need to probably be looking at paying more for bus drivers to attract somebody. We can't be in competition with fast food workers who don't get drug tested. And I know that sounds like it's a slight or something. No, if you can earn the same amount of money working fast food where you don't have to deal with the drug test, or you have to deal with the drug test to do what's legal in Colorado, if you have to deal with the drug test to drive a bus, you're going to go to the job that doesn't have that extra layer. We've got to pay more to attract a different type of person. Instead, we don't tell the truth about that. We just, there's so many things that aren't said, and somebody has to say them, which is why I'm running. Otherwise, it's just tacit consent, and I won't give tacit consent. We tell the whole truth, and if people vote to do it anyway, okay, well, great. But they had the whole truth. They knew everything. If they ignored it, that's on them.
It's a great message. I think telling the whole truth is something a lot of people are looking for in these days of quote unquote misinformation and media lies. And I mean, the list goes on and on over the last several years of, it's an issue I keep coming back to, this loss of trust in our public institutions, of loss of trust in our society, where people don't trust their neighbors, they don't trust the schools, they don't trust the government. And it's kind of unhealthy in a lot of ways. So for somebody like you who says, hey, let's shine the light on things. Let's show what's really going on. Let's have these hard conversations and let's look at the truth. And I think that's going to go a long way towards restoring trust in the schools, really.
I hope so. It's, trust in all levels of government is at an all-time low. And we're in a place now, it's funny. We've got a gentleman running for board, and he's not running against me, so I won't use the name, but he also sits on a local metro district where they're looking at lowering taxes because of the burden on citizens. So on that board, he's going to look at lowering taxes, but he's going to raise it over here for the school district. It's hypocritical at best and just downright ignorant at worst. The mixed message in that, certainly you can see that if you're going to do one thing here and another thing there, people are going to lose trust if you had it to begin with. And we're talking about the most basic, fundamental, lowest levels of government where people they turn a deaf ear anymore. So what you have is a minority amount of people making decisions for the majority that just check out. I was speaking the other night at a candidate forum, and I had somebody come up to me from the rural portion of our county, which is something else that's interesting about Douglas County. They want to compare us to urban/suburban counties. We are a suburban rural county. Douglas County has a lot of farmland left, a lot of acreage. We are partially rural. We are not the same type of district that Cherry Creek is, or even Boulder. We are different, and we're larger, much larger. But what this gentleman said to me, because he appreciated my message on the taxes, is we normally don't vote in school board elections because we assume they're all just liberal. They're all just going to take our money and whatever. So we vote against the taxes and we stay out of it. And they appreciate that there's somebody bringing a conservative, fiscally responsible message to the people. And honestly, that message is we have done more with less in the past. We have fewer students today than we had 10 years ago. So the 3 new buildings that they want to build, that as sure as the sun's coming up tomorrow, once they're built, they'll be back asking for another mill levy increase because now we have to hire staff for those buildings. What we should be doing is consolidating buildings in Highlands Ranch and other places where folks like me, my kids are all out of school now. I'm not selling. Why? Because this house is your retirement if you're Gen X. You've been wiped out in 98, 01, 08 through 010, and then starting with the COVID festivities through today. Your 401k has taken a beating if you even have one anymore. So people are keeping their homes and riding those values up. If they sell, they're going to get a higher interest rate and a bigger payment on a smaller home. So they can stay put with a low interest rate, a low payment, continue to let the equity grow. And when they're ready to sell and downsize, that's their retirement. So the district is going to continue to experience negative growth in places like this, where we're building new homes, new developments. It means we may be busing for a few years, and Parents don't want to hear that. I get it. But most of us, if you were born in the 70s, you rode a bus somewhere, probably 30 minutes each way per day. This is, in my mind, very similar to what we went through in the late 70s when I grew up in South Chicago, where the steel mills closed and good jobs were gone. Property taxes went delinquent. Government was struggling because people were struggling. That's what it should be. Government should feel the same pain the people are feeling. It should not be insulated from it. When we look at insulating government, we are picking winners and losers. If the people are losing, government is losing. When it comes to kids, that's a hard message to deliver. But see, it doesn't have to be losing, it's learning. Wants and needs. We learned when things were lean how to do more with less. Now we're saying, oh no, we've got to give you everything and then some. How are they ever going to figure out how to survive hard times if we pretend there aren't hard times? Our superintendent here in Douglas County gives this little story about how she pays an allowance to her children. And she says she's notorious for not having cash on her. So they give them $10 a week and she has maybe five. And her husband, they'll go to him and he has maybe two. So they have to go to grandma to fill in the missing money. And the problem with that story is we're all the taxpayer, right? Mom is the taxpayer. Dad is the taxpayer. And grandma is the taxpayer. And she needs to pay for her medicine. And if she owns her home or property tax bill, which is on the already skyrocketing, before she worries about backfilling allowances that maybe should be scaled back if mom and dad don't have the money for it. It's wants and needs, responsibilities or liabilities. What are we teaching our kids? And I have to question that when it's constantly, the painted windows are out. Oh, it's for the kids. It is not for the kids. The system exists for the kids. It is for the system. But the system doesn't exist if the kids aren't there. 7,000 have left in the last few years since COVID. Parents have voted with their feet. They want something different. I believe a lot of them want fiscal responsibility, transparency, and curriculum that isn't setting children up for a lifetime of identity politics, which is what it currently does.
That is a very compelling message, and I hope the voters in Douglas County hear your message and respond well to it. What can people do to support your campaign?
DiCarlo for schoolboard.com. DiCarlo schoolboard.com. They can sign up to walk, to make phone calls. Obviously, donations, campaigns do not run on well wishes. They run on money. So we absolutely welcome that. And they can reach me there if they've got questions, whatever. I will talk with anybody. I've tried to take my message as many places as possible. And I can tell you this, anytime I'm speaking, I'm the only one using the actual numbers. I'm the only one explaining why this is not something we need to do right now. And I'm the only one telling the whole truth. So if you want the whole truth, I'm your guy.
Wonderful, David. Well, I really appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.